Hello everyone, and welcome to ASMR Ghost Stories. If you enjoy ghost stories like I do, stories of the paranormal, the strange, unexplainable, then welcome. All my stories are read either in soft spoken or whispered videos. But today we're gonna go with soft spoken. So before you put your headphones on to get the full ASMR experience, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like the video. Lets me know that you're enjoying these kind of things. And hit that notification bell because I do upload twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. So today we are going to head to Scotland, my favorite place to visit. There's something extremely moody about Scotland, and there are so many stories. But today we're going to travel to a little known town called Edinburgh, another one of my favorites. And over the years I've traveled to Edinburgh probably 10 times, and I can't get enough of it. And today we're going to take you into Greyfriars Kirkyard, and we're going to talk about the MACKENZIE Poltergeist. Stay tuned to the end of the video because I have just my own little funny story to tell. Not exactly the MACKENZIE Poltergeist, but my fun little stories of Edinburgh. So today we are going to meet the dreaded MACKENZIE Poltergeist of Greyfriars Kirkyard. It's a cold night in 1998, the type Edinburgh specializes in, when the frigid air seems to work its way into the very marrow of your bones. A homeless man seeks shelter for the night. He finds himself in Greyfriars Kirkyard. Aha! Look, there's a building up ahead. The man tries the door, but it's locked. But wait, what's that? He finds a hole near the back of the mausoleum. Who knows what it's for? At least it'll get him inside and under a roof. He slips inside and finds himself in the mausoleum. The staircase takes him down to the crypt. He finds the coffins of the MACKENZIE family. Perhaps there are valuables in the caskets. Before he can find out, a hole opens in the floor. He drops into a chamber below, filled with centuries-old bones. Panic-stricken in the dark, the man somehow manages to clamber out of the burial pit. The legend tells that he flees the mausoleum in fright, encountering a local dog walker in the process. Except it isn't just the homeless man who leaves the mausoleum that night. According to the stories, one of Edinburgh's most vicious poltergeists begins to walk abroad as well. Let's meet the MACKENZIE Poltergeist. So who was George Mackenzie? He was also known as Bloody Mackenzie, and he was a judge and Lord Advocate in the 17th century. But before we can go into who he was, we need a little backstory. Religious reforms caused problems for a king. King James VI had argued that the king was head of the church. The Church of Scotland argued that only God could be the head of the church. This caused problems because James wanted a united church now that he ruled over both England and Scotland. It still wasn't resolved by the time King Charles I came to the throne in 1624. Thanks to his fervent belief in the divine right of kings, he ignored the wishes of the Scottish Church. He introduced the Common Book of Prayer in 1637 and outlawed other forms of worship. This understandably led to riots and protests in Scotland. Charles branded anyone opposing the prayer book as a traitor. His opponents decided to create a national covenant so that it was Scotland opposing Charles, not individuals. It was signed on February 28th, 1638, and those who signed it became known as the Covenanters. This declared their pledge that Scotland was loyal to the king, but it would remain a Presbyterian country. The covenant was even sanctioned by the Scottish Parliament in 1640. The First English Civil War began 2 years later, and the Covenanters supported the parliamentarians to depose Charles. Back to Mackenzie. Mackenzie actually began his career defending Covenanters and even got the Marquis of Argyll acquitted from a charge of treason. But he'd only taken on these defense cases to make his name. Once established, he switched sides, defending the king and the Scottish Church. This support paid off since he became King's Advocate for King Charles II in Scotland in 1677. He persecuted the Covenanters, who were now outlaws. After the Battle of Bothwell Bridge in 1679, Mackenzie imprisoned 1,200 of them in Greyfriars Kirkyard in the area now known as the Covenanters' Prison. At the time, it was an open area at the southern end of the kirkyard, enclosed by the town wall. They were left in this outdoor area without food, water, or shelter, and hundreds died. Guards mistreated them, and their heads ended up on spikes along the gate. By the end of 1679, only 48 Covenanters remained. Mackenzie actually fell foul of his own enthusiasm when William of Orange came to the throne. He gave religious control back to the Presbyterians, the group Mackenzie persecuted with such relish. Mackenzie fled Scotland for England, where he died in 1691. In a twist of irony, he was buried in Greyfriars, a mere stone's throw from the Covenanters' prison. Discovering Mackenzie's mausoleum. A couple of centuries ago, John Hayes, a failed criminal, apparently hid from the law in the Black Mausoleum. He spent 6 months there, sneaking out to scavenge whenever possible. When the police finally caught him, he'd gone mad. He insisted that the coffins in the mausoleum moved every night. Apparently, he could hear Mackenzie's scraping around inside his coffin. And a homeless man wasn't the only person to end up in the mausoleum more frequently. On June 30th, 2003, 2 teenagers forced open the doors and desecrated an unidentified male corpse. One of them cut off its head and used it like a glove puppet. If you believe the reports that grew up around the story, they supposedly drank wine from the skull. The boys, who were 15 and 17, caused around 10,000 pounds worth of damage. A ghost tour guide challenged the boys after seeing them carrying something in a blanket. The guide caught the police, who caught one of the boys who returned to the graveyard with a girl who didn't believe him. Authorities tried both boys under the violation of sepulture law, originally designed for grave robbing. The mausoleum became infamous after these 2 events. The doors remain locked even now. I went right up to them on a trip to Edinburgh in 2012. It was during the day, though some experiences have also been daytime encounters, and nothing happened. But that means nothing. Poltergeist activity. Since 1999, at least 140 people have collapsed. 350 documented attacks are on record. Within a week of the homeless man's insertion into the tomb, a woman felt herself blown back from the mausoleum by an icy blast of air. Jan Andrew Henderson even started the City of the Dead tour company to both investigate the sightings and to speak to witnesses. The tour takes in the whole of Greyfriars Kirkyard, including the normally locked Covenanters prison. And I'm going to give a little caveat here. I went on the tour back in 2019, the City of the Dead tour. I highly recommend it if you're in Edinburgh. This was my first tour of the graveyard. Normally, I would just go during the day and walk through it, but I was kind of curious. But it is creepy. 2 things happened while there. One of them was while we were with the tour guide, there's a I can't remember the wall, the flog wall. I can't remember the name of it. It was one of the walls around the city. Flog. I can't remember the name. But looking over some of the people in the group, I see this cat, like a black cat almost, but it was like running, but almost on like hobbling across. I thought that was weird, but because it wasn't like a run, it was like a hobble almost. And the other thing is when we were in the Covenanters prison, I felt real sharp, like poke pricks, like needle pricks in my neck and the back of my arms. And I was really nervous in there, just having a hard time breathing, so to speak. But it could have been the fact that there was about 30 of us in a very small, I don't even know what that room was because they had to unlock it. But anyway, if you do get the chance, it is an amazing little tour, and they have it at night. I'm going to go ahead and continue with the story. Visitors record both hot and cold spots, inexplicable bruises, scratches, or even being pushed by an unseen presence. They report having hair pulled or their limbs being grabbed. One woman was found unconscious nearby with bruises around her neck. Some people have claimed that an evil presence has followed them home to continue tormenting them elsewhere. The spiritualist medium Colin Grant attempted to lay ghosts to rest in the kirkyard in 2000. A few weeks later, he was unalived by a heart attack. Many attribute this to the MACKENZIE poltergeist. Dead animals turn up near the mausoleum with no obvious cause of death. People see white figures and hear knocking noises from beneath the ground. Strange fires break out in the houses surrounding the kirkyard, including that of Henderson, who lost his physical notes about the poltergeist in a house fire. Luckily, he had a digital backup elsewhere. These notes led to his book about the phenomena, The Ghost That Haunted Itself. Tales of strange sightings in the kirkyard itself abound. Figures flit between headstones, while spectral white birds make an appearance. Yet it's difficult to link these manifestations with a poltergeist. There is even a theory that the poltergeist is also responsible for paranormal activity in the Southbridge vaults. But again, this seems a difficult link to make. Theories. So how do we explain the lack of stories about hauntings before 1998? One theory is that MACKENZIE lay dormant until disturbed by the homeless man. Now awake, and presumably none too pleased about that fact, he haunts his mausoleum and the surrounding area. Surprisingly, records do show that in the 19th century, local children believed MACKENZIE was restless in his tomb. They'd run up to the mausoleum at night and yell, "Bloody MACKENZIE, come out if you dare, lift the sneck and draw the bar," through the keyhole. Sorry about my lack of Scottish accent. And remember the criminal who hid in the mausoleum, insisting MACKENZIE still moved around in his coffin. So there is some precedent to the idea of the MACKENZIE poltergeist well before 1999. Conscience or hysteria? Willie Telford, a tour guide in the area, thinks that MACKENZIE lurks in the area due to his conscience. Perhaps he feels remorse for his treatment of the Covenanters. This could certainly explain why activity seems to center around a tomb in the Covenanters' prison, not the Mackenzie Mausoleum. Another theory involves the hysterical energy on the night in 1998, which has been fed by visitors to the site. In this explanation, the continuing hysteria keeps the manifestation going. When I did a City of the Dead tour in December 2016, the tour guide offered pheromones as an example. Say you gather a party of already anxious people into a confined space, like the Covenanters' prison. The pheromones excreted by this group can influence each other, thus spreading a mass panic. Others think that the pheromones released by those imprisoned in the Covenanters' prison have somehow imprinted on the area. Every time visitors swing by for a tour, the pheromones reactivate and we experience poltergeist activity. My problem with this idea is that I'm not sure you can reactivate them over 300 years, not to mention the fact that the disturbed grave was several yards away. What do we make of the Mackenzie poltergeist? Different theories attempt to explain the Mackenzie poltergeist. Mass hysteria, pheromones, overactive imaginations, electromagnetic radiation from nearby machinery, and even geology all play a role. Any of these explanations, of all of them, could be correct. That said, it's difficult to argue with the sheer volume of reports in a relatively short time period. Furthermore, given the number of reports that involve physical assaults, it's hard to work out how geology could cause scratches to erupt on a person's body. And of course, there is another possibility. Perhaps the Mackenzie poltergeist really does roam the grounds of Greyfriars Kirkyard. And there you have it. That's the Mackenzie poltergeist. Now, the guy that wrote this kind of lays it on light, because when you go to Scotland, they lay it on thick. Supposedly, Greyfriars Kirkyard, especially the Mackenzie poltergeist, is reputed to be the most haunted graveyard in the world. I've seen it as the most haunted graveyard in Scotland. I've seen it as the most haunted graveyard in Edinburgh and in Great Britain and the world. So, my experience was I've been there maybe 5 or 6 times during the day and 1 time at night. Now, there are 0 lights in the kirkyard at night. You have the ambient glow of the surrounding lights throughout Edinburgh. It's right off the Royal Mile, and it is creepy. I do have pictures of the entire kirkyard. Every time I've gone, I've taken pictures, and I have pictures of the mausoleum. I will post the picture on the thumbnail. That is Mackenzie's mausoleum, and let me tell you, it has very distinct darkness about it. But at night, I took pictures, and I might even put that in there. I need to figure out how I can put the pictures in there. I will. Let me figure it out. Maybe I'll do a whole separate video just of Greyfriars Kirkyard, of just some pictures. That was fascinating of some of the graveyards. But my funny story was, I was there, and before I came to Scotland, I visited a family in Austria to go see their farm. And they gave me a tour of the farm. It was so funny. They're just funny, and they were excited to show it off. And so the lady of the house gave me a homemade bottle of schnapps. And I was like, oh, wow, thank you so very much. And it's, I don't know if you've ever had bootleg schnapps, if you will. It's extremely strong, but you don't have a hangover the next day. It's amazing. We have some Croatian friends that make us bootleg. They call it bootleg schnapps every time we go, and we have a fantastic time. But if you drink the schnapps, just know that when you stand up, there is no more floor. It's like, where did he go? Where? I mean, I will literally not remember. It's like you don't feel like drunk, if you will, but the next day it's like part of your memory is not there. So before we decide, I was there with a friend of mine. Before we decided to go just walk the Royal Mile, I was like, oh, I'll take a few, shots of the schnapps. Why not? I had about 3 shots, maybe. Really good. And so we decided to walk around. It was starting to rain, and that's all I had had. I think I'd had a glass of wine somewhere else. We walked the entire town. I even tried to go get my nose pierced, which I ended up going the next day, and it was a disaster. And then I ended up getting a tattoo at the same place. But so we walked through the entire kirkyard, and it's dusk. I don't remember walking through the kirkyard, and we walked probably 30 minutes just looking at everything and trying to scare each other, that sort of thing. The next day I told my friend, oh, let's walk around, let's do this. And I said, oh, let's go to the kirkyard, we haven't been yet. She's like, we spent like 30 minutes of it yesterday there. I was like, really? I don't remember it, because it would have, I wouldn't have gone at dusk. I'm just going to say that. I wouldn't have done it alone. It's not that we were alone, but we weren't with a group of people. And when we went on the tours, we were with our husbands. So we felt a little bit safe. So that was just my little funny story that I walked through the kirkyard, and my memory of it is completely wiped away, all from 3 shots of bootleg schnapps. So if you get a chance to head to Edinburgh, the kirkyard is amazing. And there's a lot of stories that go along with it, and I can do a future video of that as well. So if you liked this video, hit that like button and the subscribe button. I do upload twice a week, so hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss a thing. And so if you enjoy these kind of stories and you have one of your own, comment below or send me an email, which is in the description box. So until then, stay just a little scared, everybody, and stay tuned for the next scary story.